Hi, before I answer this week's question, I just wanted to make a public service announcement. There is a comments section right underneath this on the website, and if you'd like a question answered about Judaism, please put it in the comments section, and hopefully I'll try to look at it and answer it sometime over the next week or two. So just keep that in mind. Comment section if you would like questions answered. Anyway, this week someone asked me that we know that the Jewish people just celebrated the New Year, which is Rosh Hashanah, and they asked me what is with the Jewish calendar. A little confusing exactly what the Jewish calendar is and why we have a different calendar. So first of all, there are something like 60 different calendars in use all around the world. Different cultures and civilizations have their different calendars. The Jewish calendar is primarily a lunar calendar, meaning the beginning of the month is new moon, the middle of the month, full moon, is the middle of the month, and when the moon wanes, you don't see it anymore, that's the end of the month. And there are 12 lunar months in the Jewish year. Of course, we also adjust it for the solar calendar so that our festivals like Pesach, Passover, falls in spring, and Rosh Hashanah, the New Year, falls in fall, autumn, etc., so that it's adjusted also for the solar calendar. I will not go into the details of that, but it's primarily a lunar calendar, and the question is why we have this type of calendar. So the Torah, the Bible, one of the first commandments that it gives the Jewish people right after we come out of Egypt, even before, is that we now have to focus on a lunar calendar as opposed to a purely solar calendar. And I think there are three major reasons for this: historical, theological, and psychological. The historical reason is because for us, the seminal event in Jewish history was our redemption from Egypt. That's when we were created as a people. That's when we saw God's involvement in the world, divine providence. That's when we saw God as a redeemer and as one who is involved in our lives, in our history, and in our futures. And consequently, we always want to preserve the memory of that event. One of the ways that we do it is by having a calendar that begins, the first month is from the Exodus in Egypt, and the mitzvah we were given, the commandment we were given of counting the months from then, is a way to preserve the memory of the Exodus from Egypt. So that is a historical aspect of the calendar. A psychological aspect of the calendar is that when you look at the moon has, at least it appears because of the reflection of the light of the sun and so on and so forth, it waxes and wanes. It gets bigger, it gets smaller. It goes from nothing to a full moon, from a full moon to nothing. And one of the lessons for us in life is that we should take inspiration from that, to know that life has ups and downs. It's inevitable that there will be times in life that we go up. There are times in life in which there is descent. But what we have to know is it's always possible to start anew, it's always possible to ascend, it's always possible to achieve greatness even from the midst of despair. So psychologically, it's a way of the Jewish people looking at the moon, and even though you don't see the moon, but you know that it will get bigger and bigger and bigger until we see a full moon. So it's an inspirational idea, and the Jewish people are indeed compared to the moon. In one of the prayers that we say, we compare the Jewish people's renewal to the renewal of the moon each and every month, both on an individual level, renewal, and also on a national level, Jewish redemption and renewal, both of them symbolized by the moon. Theologically is the third idea of the calendar, that it's very interesting. It's not true today, but in theory, and it was certainly true for over 2,000 years, the Jewish calendar was in the hands of the Sanhedrin, the Jewish Supreme Court. And although they were directed to observe the moon and to accept witnesses who saw the moon and basically direct the calendar based on the moon, but they had the freedom to override the observation of the moon. They had the freedom to override the astronomical calculations, and they could sometimes decide to make a month 29 or 30 days, or add a leap month to the year, etc. There was a freedom of the Jewish people, symbolized or represented by the Sanhedrin, to actually conduct and direct the calendar. So the simple idea there is that we are not controlled by nature, but rather we have the ability to control nature. And that teaches us the important theological lesson of free will, which is one of the most central ideas in all religious thought, certainly in Judaism and certainly in the idea of morality, that humans have free will. We are not merely slaves to nature. We are not merely moved along by the tides moved along by the moon like the tides, but rather we're in control of it, and it is not in control of us. And so the basic calendar also teaches us the central idea of free will and human freedom and morality. So those are three ideas behind the calendar: historical, to remember the Exodus from Egypt; psychological, to be reminded of the ability of renewal and growth and redemption on an individual and a national level; and theologically, to keep us focused on the idea that humans have free will, that we are not controlled by nature, but we're able to control it. We are not creatures of instinct, but we are creatures of intuition and thought and free will. That's it for this week. And please remember, if you would like a question answered, put it in the comments section on the website. Thanks very much.